UFC Vegas 52. This is the weigh-in recap show, full card predictions, and the betting breakdown. Main event, Amanda Lemos fights Jéssica Andrade. Pretty high-stakes fight in the women's strawweight division. We're going to go through each fight. After seeing the fighters on the scales, we'll pull up the images from the weigh-ins and face-offs as well. Make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn those post notifications on, and share the video as well. Let's start it off with the first fight of the night, which truly isn't UFC caliber, but we're still talking about it. It should be an entertaining matchup. It's Mike Jackson versus Dean Barry. I am on the Dean Barry side. I think that he's going to get it done. Earlier on in the week, the pick is Dean Barry. Nothing has shifted or changed for me. We can check them out on the scales, but I don't think it plays much of a factor. Mike Jackson isn't a guy that really looks impressive on the scales. Neither really is Dean Barry. You see a little bit of a height advantage for Mike Jackson. Dean Barry should knock the 37-year-old Mike Jackson out. I mean, one's a full-time fighter in Dean Barry, one's not in Mike Jackson. Realistically, they shouldn't be very close. I think Dean Barry with that karate-style kickboxing can land some strikes, but Mike Jackson could get some offense going. He is a Muay Thai kickboxer. He has an okay stand-up game, very spotty on the floor. Don't be surprised if Dean Barry looks for takedowns here and out-grapples Mike Jackson over the full three. But I am going to go Dean Barry by TKO or knockout. As far as the line, it's disgusting. Minus 1,000 Barry, Jackson plus 900. That's hideous. If we go Barry's best prop, let's say KO, TKO for Barry, minus 150. This is really a no bet. Maybe under 2.5, minus 210. But a fight I'd rather stay away from. I don't think the likelihood of Mike Jackson winning is very high. But the risk factor on Dean Barry and the line as wide as it is, keep me away from this fight. Give me Dean Barry for the win, though. Starts this weird card off. And this next one is one that I personally am actually excited to see. It's Marcin Prachnio versus Philipe Lins. Earlier in the week, I'm on the Lins side. Let's check them out on the scales. There's Philipe Lins. Look at the abs on this guy. He shredded out to get to 205. This looks like Philipe Lins times 2. This is ultra Philipe Lins. I'm very excited about him. There is Marcin, who's always known for looking fairly menacing on the scales. And there's an intense face-off. I think Philipe Lins is going to sleep Marcin. That was the pick earlier in the week. That's still the pick here. I like the stand-up game. Pretty decent boxing skill set for Lins, and I think the weakness for Prachnio is not super technical boxing. A guy that can get a bit wild and can get caught over the top. I do think that Prachnio will look to make it a fight. I think Philipe Lins is going to land straight shots. I expect him to mix some low kicks in as well. And just patiently picking Prachnio apart, I think Philipe Lins stops him in the second round. You know, before Lins came to the UFC, he was doing good work. There was a he was a PFL champion. That was Josh Copeland, Jared Rosholt, Kyle Alensar. Philipe Lins can win this bout. I think he's going to beat Marcin here, and I do think he stops him in the second round. Odds are actually plus money for Philipe. Plus 119 is the dog. Marcin Prachnio minus 113. I am on the side of Philipe Lins to get the win. And I like him inside of the distance. I really like him by KO. Lins to win by KO plus 300. That's a tag that I'm feeling. Plus 200 over at BetOnline. I probably will be playing that one myself. I like Philipe Lins as a dog either way. I think he's going to sleep Marcin. I think we're going under 2.5 rounds. Best value for that is minus 145. But at BetOnline, it is minus 200. I like Philipe Lins. Knockout. Impressive. I'm excited to see this comeback for Philipe, coming in looking great on the scales. Preston Parsons versus Evan Elder. This was a fight we broke down for the first time on the money line last night. Make sure you guys watch that show every Thursday with me and my guy Mike Finch. I was with Mike on the Preston Parsons side. I'm still going to be there, but we will check the fighters out on the scales. There is Evan Elder. He's in very good shape. He's lean, ready to go. He's a young prospect. There is Preston Parsons. It's an interesting stylistic matchup. There's some moments that I see Elder as hittable, but he's still a developing prospect. I feel like the side of Preston Parsons is just a bit more experienced, a bit more well-rounded. I do think these guys are fairly competitive, but when they go to the floor, I could see Parsons potentially pulling a submission. I like Preston Parsons to win. Because it's short notice, I tend to go inside distance. Kind of feel decision too, but I'll say submission for Preston Parsons over Evan Elder. As far as the lines here, Elder's plus money, plus 123. Parsons minus 125. I like that minus 125 for Preston Parsons to win. Fight ends in the distance, minus 195. Let's see, Parsons wins inside distance, plus 155. Parsons by sub, plus 245. Most of his wins are by submission. Look at the recent 4. Submission, 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 submission. Preston Parsons is a dangerous guy when it goes to the floor, and I do think Evan Elder will fall victim here in our 3rd fight of the night. 4th fight, Aori Qileng versus Cameron Else. Earlier on the week, I was confidently on Aori Qileng. We checked him out on the scales. There is Cameron Else looking confident. Thin, though. Thin. And, his opponent, Aori, also looks fairly thin. There's a intense face-off. The beret on Cameron Else there. As far as this matchup goes, I'm still going to be sticking with my guy, Aori Qileng. I think he's the more explosive and athletic striker, and so should find some counter shots to hurt Cameron Else. I do think Qileng gets a stoppage inside the first 2 rounds, really. Cameron Else has a submission over Paddy Pimblett. He's a guy with good finishing ability, 5 subs, 5 knockouts. Definitely a finisher, 100%. And I think that fares well for Aori Qileng, a guy who does bring the action. I think he's going to win this fight. I wouldn't be shocked if it goes to full 3, but I'm going to go Aori Qileng wins by knockout. For Aori Qileng, he's a minus 220 favorite. Cameron Else is a plus 203 underdog. Qileng to win inside distance, plus 130. Qileng to win by KO is plus 170. I do think he's going to get the win by knockout. I think we're doing the under 2.5, minus 165 over at BetOnline, minus 142 at best value. I don't think this fight's going the full 3. And I like Aori Qileng to get himself a knockout win in the UFC. Let's keep running up. Next fight, Tyson Pedro returns. He fights Ike Villanueva. Earlier on the week, the pick is Tyson Pedro. This is an ideal matchup for him. We'll check them out on the scales. There's Ike Villanueva, and then there is Tyson Pedro. He looks pretty good, actually, and ready to come back. Good little face-off. Nothing too crazy there. Ike Villanueva is a tough journeyman who likes to brawl. He's 38. I think he's best suited for that BKFC, man. I think he'd do fairly well over there with his stand-up. He's got nice hook flurries in the close range. He does his best work in close. Tyson Pedro is a pretty good kickboxer from range, but shines on the floor. I'm going to go Pedro to win by submission. But if you're getting close to Ike Villanueva, you need to be prepared for big punches over the top. And I do think Pedro will be, but he can't be overzealous here. Has to patiently pick apart Ike and time your takedowns well, find a way on top, and do your thing with the submissions. I think on the ground, the gap is wide between the skill sets. Minus 549 for Tyson Pedro, best value. Ike Villanueva plus 506 is a huge underdog. I do think that Pedro wins by submission is a very likely outcome. That's plus 190. Pedro by KO TKO is actually plus 180, so a little bit less. But Pedro, known for the submission skills, sure, he could get the finish, but I'm feeling like he does get it done by a submission. Now, Pedro inside distance, minus 225, so it's expected for him to get the finish. I think under 2.5, wow, minus 275. Under 1.5, minus 175. I could see a second round sub, but I'm really feeling first round sub, and I'm going Tyson Pedro with a pretty fair amount of confidence here. And I mean, the line is very wide, that the money line is tough. Your sub prop's your best option. Dwight Grant versus Sergey Khandozhko. Good matchup here in the welterweight division. I think this is an entertaining striking battle between the two. Dwight Grant was a pick earlier in the week, but I do acknowledge he's 37 years of age. Sergey bouncing back after a fair amount of a layoff. Man, Dwight Grant doesn't look good on the scales here. Like, Dwight Grant just looks like a guy that's going to get knocked out tomorrow. I just have a weird feeling that he's going to get slept, but that's not a technical breakdown. That's a weird feeling. Just looking at him on the scales. 1-1 UFC record for Sergey. He's been out for 2.5 years. He bounces back. He is a pretty decent kickboxer. He's the younger guy. Dwight Grant, though, he's pretty athletic, but I don't know. He looked really off on the scale. Something's off with Dwight Grant, so there's going to be no money being thrown down for the Dwight Grant side for me. But I do think Dwight Grant to etch out a competitive decision, maybe a spotty decision, really, in a striking matchup between the two, but Grant probably looks to clinch up a bit. Grant is a slight dog, plus 105. Sergey, minus 112. As I said, I don't really love the bet on Dwight Grant. Over 1.5 minus 290 I think is highly likely. Over 2.5 minus 165 is pretty possible. Grant to win by decision. Let's see what that is. Grant by decision is plus 260. Khandozhko by KO is plus 650. Due to that weird feeling, the age, if you're looking for a Hail Mary prop, even though it's on the other side of the pick, Khandozhko by KO plus 650. I don't know. I just sometimes have weird feelings the day before fights, and this is one of them. I don't like the way that Dwight Grant looked in the scales, but I'm not ready to flip the pick. But if you're looking for a bet on a dog and you want to play plus, or excuse me, if you're not looking for a dog, but a close money pick and you want to play a prop, Sergey by KO at plus 650 is an okay Hail Mary, but I'm still riding with Dwight Grant to win a spotty decision here. Our featured prelim of the night, Jourdain Wright, Marc-Andre Barriault. I don't like that both these guys are coming off knockout losses. 3 months for Jourdain Wright, 2 months for Marc-Andre Barriault. They're bouncing back, though, and they were both slept in the first round. Somebody's probably getting knocked out here. Barriault's never been known to be chinny, but it's always a concern when you get knocked out. Now, earlier in the week, the pick is Barriault. We'll check him out on the scale. There is Marc-Andre Barriault. There is Jourdain Wright. Jourdain Wright with the beard. He's looking in pretty good shape, man. Okay, face off there. Wright is just too inept. I mean, he's just not defensively sound whatsoever. His offense is really good, and I like watching Jourdain Wright let strikes fly. He's dangerous. He can hurt fighters. He hurt Bruno Silva early, but he gets hit all the time. He gets hit a ton. Been knocked out in all 3 of his losses. One was overturned to a no contest. It was against Fluffy Hernandez, but he was still slept. Jourdain Wright is getting knocked out by Marc-Andre Barriault. I am going to pick second round KO, and don't be surprised if Barriault does look to clinch up a bit, if Jourdain Wright looks a little bit quick early, but don't sleep on Marc-Andre Barriault to get a stoppage later on. Second round, maybe even third, but I'm going Barriault by TKO, and I expect him to do some work against the cage. Barriault is a strong favorite, minus 180. Jourdain Wright, plus 169 is the dog. I like to go Barriault by KO. Let's see what that. Plus 165, Barriault by KO, I think is the pick. I think that's what's going to happen here. I don't really love the unders. Under 2.5, minus 155. I mean, it's probably not going the distance. So I'll say under 2.5 is an okay bet. I don't hate a Marc-Andre Barriault play, but just note both these guys have been KO'd recently, so you don't know 100% if they're at 100%. And we're going to find out on fight night. But I'm picking with the Marc-Andre Barriault side here. Let's jump towards the main card. If you guys have not yet, make sure to smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Charles Air Jourdain versus Lando Groovy Vannata. I love this matchup. Earlier on in the week, the pick is Lando Vannata. We'll check the fighters out on the scales. There's Charles Jourdain looking tatted up like a savage. There's Lando Vannata looking horrifying on the scales. He looked like really sunken in the face. The bald head ain't helping him. He looks like a damn zombie right now. I don't like the look of Lando Vannata, but it could just be bad haircut, tough weight cut. The man's looking ugly. So I'm not going to be jumping against him here. I do think Lando Vannata can win a competitive decision, especially if he mixes takedowns in. Charles Jourdain is a dangerous striker, but as is Lando Vannata, I'd say Jourdain maybe is a bit more powerful. Lando Vannata a bit more unorthodox. So I'm very interested to see how these two will fare as they get into the kickboxing realm. And I do think Vannata can time some takedowns, a couple of them, get himself on top, score some points. And I do think Lando Vannata on a hard-fought decision. But would I be shocked if it goes the way of Jourdain? Absolutely not. Jourdain is a slight favorite, minus 102. Vannata plus 102. We're looking at pretty much a pick'ems matchup. Do you like Vannata as a dog at plus money? Maybe you play that. Vannata by decision would be my pick here. So plus 250 for that. Jourdain by decision plus 190. I feel like we're going the full 3. Even though we got 2 strikers, durability is something that I'm not questioning for either man. Minus 155 fight goes distance. Minus 175 for the over 2.5. I think the over 2.5 will definitely be an interesting and sweaty play if you're looking to parlay at 2. But I do think the likelihood is fairly high that we're going the full 3 for these two. And I'm picking the Lando Vannata side to get the win to start off the main card. Alexandr Romanov versus Chase Sherman. I feel like Romanov is going to run through him. Earlier in the week, we didn't even get a real breakdown for this one. We did it on the money line. Romanov, I think stylistically, is a horrible matchup for Chase Sherman, who takes the fight on short notice. The scales are not a factor here. There's Chase Sherman. There is Alexandr Romanov. And then there's the face-offs. It's heavyweight. I'm going with Romanov, who's been training to fight a quick striker, a guy that's light on his feet. Sherman is a lot lesser of a striker than Tanner Bozier. He doesn't have, I don't feel, as much quickness. But Chase Sherman was the BKFC heavyweight champ at one point. So, I mean, if he touches your chin, he could hurt you. I think Romanov's going to take Sherman down and beat him up from the top position. I think definitely Romanov inside of the distance. As far as the money line, minus 1408 is the best value, plus 1300 for Sherman. These lines are hideous for this fight. It's essentially an unplayable line. I feel like we're going 2 rounds or less, so fight doesn't start round 3, minus 390. That's not a good one. Romanov wins inside distance, minus 450. I think you got to pick between KO and sub, plus 190 for Romanov by KO. Romanov by sub is minus 115. I could see Romanov getting on top and pounding out Chase Sherman, but I feel like he could also submit him. So it's a scary one to prop up. I like both of those props. I love inside distance, but the line is hideous, so you're not going to touch it. But I like Alexandr Romanov to get the win. I'm going to pick by submission, though, which is minus 115, but there's more plus money towards the knockout side, which is also a possible option, and it will be ground and pound. How long can Sherman stay on his feet? I suggest to you it won't be very long. Next one. Featured bout of the night, Maycee Barber versus Montana de la Rosa. The ladies going at it here at 125. I think Maycee Barber is the pick still, but earlier in the week she was also the pick. We'll check them out on the scales. There's de la Rosa. There is Maycee Barber. Nothing about the scale is concerning to me here. I think that Maycee Barber is quicker on the feet than Montana de la Rosa, definitely the better striker. I think she's more athletic. I think the strength is going to be better on the side of Maycee Barber. I think she'll fend off takedowns and win a unanimous decision over de la Rosa. Of course, on the floor, de la Rosa is dangerous. If she finds herself in top position, is very good at controlling that top position and taking rounds. So Barber needs to not be put on her back here. The takedown defense, though, I think holds up against Montana. Minus 170 for Barber, plus 168 for De La Rosa. As far as the props here, I think we're going long. Over 2.5 is minus 240. I feel like that's a decent parlay piece. Barber wins by decision, plus 140. I think that's a likely outcome here. It's women's MMA. This fight could get spotty, so over 2.5 would be your best bet. I don't really love the money line touch on either side, especially if you're on the favorite side of Maycee Barber, and I don't really love playing the decision prop. So over 2.5, possible parlay piece here, but I am picking Maycee Barber to win. Hard-fought, unanimous decision, and I do think it should be fairly clear-cut. Co-main event, it is Clay Guida versus Claudio Puelles. Very fun matchup here. I'm excited to see Clay Guida back in action once again. Earlier on in the week, the pick is Clay Guida. I think stylistically is a hard matchup for Claudio. There is Claudio Puelles on the scales, lean and ready to go. There is Clay Guida in fantastic shape as always, legend of the fight game. You see Puelles is the taller guy. Puelles doesn't control range extraordinarily well. I think Guida will find his way inside. I do think Guida can actually find takedowns and get on top of Puelles, though Puelles, known for being very dangerous with his grappling, is an iffy takedown fighter. His wrestling offensively isn't his strongest attribute. Even though he lands these takedowns, the pure technique of it, I think, is actually really difficult to land on somebody like Clay Guida, a very high volume guy, constantly pressing in, a guy that's known for his durability. I think Clay Guida is there for the full 3. I think this is a difficult matchup for the young Claudio Puelles. I'm going to pick Clay Guida to get the win and beat the prospect Claudio Puelles here. Now, as far as the line, Guida is actually a slight favorite now, minus 105, and then Puelles at plus 101 as an underdog. Depending where you go, though, the line could be flipped. This is essentially a pick'ems. I think we're going the full 3. Over 2.5 is minus 200. I think that's probably happening, unless Puelles was to catch Guida with a submission. I do like Puelles' body kicks a lot, but I think it's going to be hard to put away Guida. I don't see Guida getting stopped here unless he gets caught in some type of sub, which I think is low likelihood. Plus 175, Guida by decision, but Puelles by submission is something I have to note. That is plus 485. If you're on the Puelles side, maybe you're feeling him by sub. Does have a tricky ground game. And he is a longer guy than Clay. He's taller by 4 inches, and he brings a 2-inch reach advantage. Clay Guida, though, to get a competitive decision over Claudio Puelles in a fun matchup. Main event of the evening, Amanda Lemos versus Jéssica Andrade. I love this matchup. Earlier on in the week, I was on the Jéssica Andrade side. We checked them out on the scales. There is Lemos. There is Jéssica Andrade rocking the blue hair, looking pretty good shape, thick, good muscle tone. There's the face-off. I think Andrade's pressure is going to be too much for Amanda Lemos, who's a pretty good slickster-style fighter. He's got that sniper striking style, likes to sniper opponents from range, land good straight punches, very good kicks, explosive girl who hits hard, especially if you get caught at the end of her punch. Jéssica Andrade moves her head fairly well, rushes inside with a ton of pressure, and I think that Lemos is going to have to fight really hard to keep Andrade off of her. The more she keeps her off of her, obviously the more likelihood of Lemos winning. But how long can she keep that up? I think Andrade's pressure, pace, and volume is going to be too much for the taller Amanda Lemos, who likes to fight from distance. I do think Andrade is the physically stronger girl, could find herself on top in the grappling. I'm confident in Jéssica Andrade to get a win, and I am going to pick by third round knockout here for her to stop Lemos, probably with the hands. Money line for Andrade, minus 200. Lemos, plus 188. Let's see here. The over 1.5 is minus 220. I do think it goes over 1.5. The over 2.5 is where you get murkier. Andrade to win by KO TKO is plus 240. I don't think Lemos stops her. I don't think we're going the full 3. I think we're going under 4.5 rounds. That's minus 165 best value. Under 3.5, minus 122. I do think that comes through, but it's a sketchier bet. I personally don't like it. I like Andrade as a potential parlay piece or a money line pick. Very confident here. I went with Andrade also. I'm feeling like she's a lock of the week here. And on the money line, if you guys watch, me and Mike Finch went head-to-head. Lemos was his most confident pick, Andrade being mine, so it's a fun head-to-head there. I'm excited to have a little friendly competition with my guy Mike for the money line locks of the night picks of the week. Andrade, though, for the win, and I'm going by knockout. I think the pressure will be too much. Lemos has that lead hand a bit low. I see it getting caught. Over the hand shots land, or excuse me, over the top shots land for Andrade, and I think she gets the finish. Overall, this card isn't fantastic. I'm selling myself on it the more that I cover it during the week. I was going to say a D, but it's a C card. It's a C card. It's not a D. It's a C card. There's still good action through it. I think there's definitely going to be entertainment value, and we're going to enjoy. I'll be live for this entire card. I'll also be doing the Tyson Fury live stream, so it's back-to-back lives. Make sure to tune in right here at MMA Experts for the Fight Companions. We're coming back with a vengeance this Saturday with 2 back-to-back live streams after last week was an off week. Now, I want to give you guys a couple of parlays to send you off with. Nothing too crazy, especially seeing how close a lot of these lines are. There's some tricky matchups here. Now, if I go earlier in the night, I have a feeling Philipe Lins wins. Tyson Pedro, plus 131. I hate that line. Who can we really add? Aori would be plus 183. Or do you go Lins with Andrade? Plus 191. I'm kind of feeling this one if you're looking for a dog. If you're not on the Philipe Lins side, but I feel like a lot of you should be. I do expect him to get it done. I don't really love too many parlays here. I would pick Marc-Andre Barriault in normal circumstance, but I am concerned about the chin with the recent knockout loss. Still, he's fighting Jourdain Wright. I'll ride with this one. Andrade, Marc-Andre Barriault, plus 120. If you're looking to add a little more, Aori, Qileng, I do think gets it done. That's plus 212. Not really much value adding in a Tyson Pedro or an Alexandr Romanov, so I'll leave them out. But if you want to do such a thing, go for it. Philipe Lins, plus 523. I feel like this plus 500 tag is kind of the best we can get without getting real risky. I mean, you add in Maycee Barber, you got plus 890 now. You add in Lando Vannata, plus 1790. You're getting in risky territory here. I do think the overs might be the play. So if you can get Maycee Barber over 2.5 rounds, and then you play that with Andrade, you got minus 101. It's essentially even money now. And then let's say you wanted to add a little bit more to it. You're feeling Barriault, plus 202. Or potentially you could ride with Aori, plus 182. Or if you want the dog, Philipe Lins, plus 299, about plus 300 for that one. Definitely a card to be cautious, but I do think there's some bets that we could potentially cash here. I also like the over 2.5 in this fight. So if you collab the 3 up, over 2.5 for Jourdain Vannata and for De La Rosa Barber, and then you have Andrade in your mix-up, it's plus 200. If you don't like Andrade, you're still at plus 110. I think that's a pretty solid play. Maybe even went nuts and you just played the under 4.5 or something like that, under 3.5, depending where you go, plus 350, but don't like it as much. I'd rather go Andrade with the overs for both of those other 2 fights on the main card, being Vannata and then being Maycee Barber for plus 200. And then if you're feeling that confidence and you want to add in Philipe Lin's a dog, plus 500 for this play, I think this is a pretty high likelihood outcome. Go nuts, add in Marc-Andre Barriault. I recommend 2-3 fighter parlays maximum. I'm a big fan of the over-unders. Definitely be cautious on this card. Bet responsibly, as you should every weekend. I hope you guys enjoyed another breakdown. It was an absolute blast to break down this card for you guys all week long. Make sure to smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Keep it locked in here at MMA Experts. Turn the post notifications on and share the video as well. I'll be live for that full card. I got Tyson Fury, Dillian White fight I'll be live for, and then I'll be live for this UFC card. 100 likes for the shoeys. I'll do it on both streams. 100 likes will hit the shoey. We might see 2 to 3 shoeys in the night. So definitely tune into the lives. Much love, my people, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace, guys.